I think about this family estrangement, our kids cutting their parents off quite often because I have a number of friends whose children have done this. And I'm not saying my kids have never gotten mad at me, and they have, but as adults. But we have a conversation and we work things out. But last week, a friend of Michael's was saying that she doesn't know why her son cut her off. She knows she's not perfect. She's a single mom, worked hard. I mean, her husband was so difficult,
Hmm.
and her son does never talk to his dad either. But just having heard her story and knowing her struggle as a single mom and how hard she worked on their behalf to make their life better because she grew up super poor, it makes me so sad.
Yeah,
Because not just for her, but for the kids. I'm sad for the parents and the kids because the kid is going to want to come back at some point, and it's just all so hard. And I don't know why we don't think further down the road, I guess, that the choice I make today isn't just about today. And that's what
right,
this whole no contact thing. Um, and so because I love history, I'm trying to think of this in like a history contact where the you're mad at your parents and you move from Massachusetts to California, you never hear from them again.
right.
'Cause, you know, it's horse
You
and
might write him a
buggy.
letter. Yeah,
You might write them a letter
yeah,
to let them, yeah, or you might never hear from your kid again or whatever.
right.
But this, I feel like sometimes kids feel like they have to stick with it because they shared it on social media, how bad their
Hmm.
parents were. They have to go no contact. And then the parents in turn run to social media, join their own group about how bad their kid is for going no contact. The kids
Right,
in the going no contact because your parents are horrible group. And we're not having real conversations with people that
right.
are
Yeah,
holistic. It's that one little spot that you're working on when it's this bigger picture. Does that make
right.
sense?
Yeah, is that what it's called? Is it called going no contact?
Yeah, that's one of the
Okay, huh?
terms for it.
That's interesting. So,
But I don't know. It's so my primary reason for thinking about this a lot is never wanting this to happen with my children. And
right,
knowing parents, friends who I see as like super good parents, and one of their kids doing this, and nobody in their family knows why. The other kids don't know why. They won't talk to anybody. That kid who cut them off cuts off any childhood friends who will still see their family. I mean, it just goes to the extreme.
hmm,
And then on the other hand, I know my older kids' friends that, the parent's mentally ill, and it's not a no contact, but it's like super careful contact because
right,
I have to guard myself and my kids from this parent. And every time I go to see this parent, I need to set it up carefully and have an exit strategy in
right,
case they go crazy because they do. So there's this vast difference, I think, between there's this branch of spoiled kids who grew up wealthy with lots of stuff who get mad at their parents, are encouraged to be mad at their parents by other people. I think like 30% roughly by a counselor of some sort. And then you have these kids who are still investing in their parent, even though it's really hard.
right.
And so, how do you help people understand that honoring your parents so that it'll go well with you as you get older has something to do with how your kids are going to treat you.
Right. Well, you just put a lot there. From you kind of skipped forward a bit in your outline. So you just take honoring your parents. I think that honoring your
Okay.
parents, like people, like what we do, and we don't do it just because of social media, but what we do is we hear honoring and we think honoring means something that it doesn't mean. Okay. So we
Okay.
think parents think it means they have to respect me, they have to like me, they have to obey me, and that's just not true. So in Exodus 20:12, where it says to honor your parents, the word there means to be heavy about your thoughts about your parents, to have let them have weight. Okay, and it's the same word. I'm almost positive to use for like honor God, give God the proper weight. And the proper weight is like, well, here, I'll get to that. But then in Ephesians, we have children obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And, but it's like, but it's not like obey your parents, like do what they tell you to do after you're 18. And I
Right.
think we get that wrong. And so we, as an adult child, if we have a sense that we have to obey our parents, agree with our parents, like what our parents do, then we're constantly feeling bad in the relationship, right? So we have this,
Yes.
we have to get honor right. So honor and respect are two different things. Like you can honor your parent and not respect how they've been a mom or a dad. See, because respect is like I'm giving this to you because you did that well. It's I'm approving of you and what you did. Like you can respect your boss as a boss, but not as a human being out in his family. You can
Right.
see a guy that man, I really respect him how he's made money, but wow, I do not respect how he has raised his family or how he has no connection with his kid. But honor is not approval. Honor is saying, I recognize God's view of this worth on this person, right? So it's completely, totally different. So we can honor a parent that we don't respect. Okay. And I think that we get that parents and children, adult children get that wrong. I think there's a lot more inner dialogue going on a kid that's 16, 17, 18, 20, 25, of how they separate from their parent. And it should be a painful thing. There should be conflict between father
Yeah.
and son. There should be conflict with how your children are raising their children between you and the parent because they should not mimic what you did.
Yeah. So one
So,
of my clearest things with that is when Luke turned 18, he wanted to meet his biological mom.
right,
But I know part of his struggle was wanting to respect me and the effort I'd put in to his life, and he
right.
loved me. And she'd rejected him a number of times. He was supposed to meet up, and we went and sat at Freddy's, and he's like, "What should I do?" And it's like, "Look, for me, if you just put all these worms back in the can and put the lid on, that's easy for me. Never have to deal with it. But that's never why I've been here as your mom. I've been here as your mom to help you figure out what you want to do."
Right, right,
And so just walking through that process of you're not disrespecting me or not honoring me because you want to see your bio mom again. I
right.
mean, I think that's you might need to do that.
Yeah,
And we did, and I think it went exactly as he expected, but he needed to know. But
yeah.
it was that he was that inner dialogue of him struggling with how do I handle this? And I think as a parent, that's your responsibility to ask your kid those questions to help them think through those things.
And see, I think that's what I see parents doing a lot very poorly is they're still telling their kids what they should do in their 20s and in their 30s. And they might not be telling them in like, I don't like what you're doing, but there's a constant dialogue that I think some of these kids are feeling from their parents of their disappointment that their kid's doing something.
Oh, we don't do it that way. Our family doesn't do it like
That's
that.
right. That's right. And
Yeah.
this is, and I don't coach very many couples, but it's like a lot of times the couples are like, well, this is the way my family does it. I'm like, you're not part of your family anymore. You're
Yeah.
part of this family. You're these two. We tell Zeke and Monica they don't have any kids, but like they decide what they do for Thanksgiving and Christmas without
Yeah.
they can honor both sets of parents, but they decide what they are doing, and then I need to give them not just permission, but I need to celebrate that they're deciding and not get my feelings hurt that they've decided to do something different. And
No, it's but
I think we're not aware as parents how much pressure we put on our kids of disappointment, of silence, of, and we're not honoring their choices a lot of times, right? Because we should
yeah.
honor them as adults.
Yeah. So
And
it's interesting because you do know my mom and that she has food issues and she wants everyone to eat really healthy.
right,
And I get that and I'm happy for her. But her conversation about that towards me has really helped me think about how I speak to my kids.
right, right,
That, waiting for them to ask your advice
right,
versus giving helpful advice
right.
is probably pretty important. But really,
Well,
just
yeah,
accepting them for who they are and the choices they're going to make because they're theirs to make. They're not mine to make.
right.
So that's interesting. So this problem starts at a much younger age, whether it's in the kid's mind or it's in the parenting style that you have. Um, so if you're a younger parent and you have teenagers, this is where you get into this understanding this concept probably of not wanting this for the future is allowing your kids to have conversations and question you.
Absolutely. But what
Okay.
we do is we've taken again a superficial look at what respect means. We think respect from a 15 or 16-year-old means like immediate obedience. And I've hated that teaching about delayed obedience is
Just
disobedience. Well, that means that between me and my Father God, I'm disobedient all the time because it takes
yeah,
me more than a minute, and
yes.
there are some things I've been quick at obeying, but there's some things I'm super dense at. I think we believe often wrongly that a question is disrespectful, and we put wrong motive on our teenagers. Well, you're being disrespectful. All they're doing might be doing is pointing something out that's very true, but we feel like it's disrespectful, and so that is tough. But I do think that um, the right definition scripturally what honoring parents means. I think parents need to know what that is. And you're right. I think like at 11, 12, 13, that's when it starts. When you have to decide as a parent, man, my kids will honor me in my home, but I might be doing some things that aren't very respectful. And
Yeah,
I'm afraid and irritated. I think that's for me as a dad. My son has a ton of wisdom, and I think that some irritation comes from early on. Not anymore, I don't think, but was like, man, he is nailing this right there. He's nailing this right there. He told me one time, he goes, Dad, why are you like treating me and disciplining me like I'm going to be dumb like you were when you were a teenager? I'm like, holy smokes, that's so true. It's exactly what I was doing, worried about his college education, worried about
yeah.
his high school years when I dropped out. I'm like, I'm treating him. So it was super helpful. And so I think but you also use the word boundary. I think we get boundaries really, really wrong. So because no contact is not a boundary, because a
Right.
boundary in the book, and I think boundaries by Henry McCloud. Is it McCloud? I think
Loud
it's
and Townsend.
in town. I think it's the single best relationship book out there. I have read it. I've listened to it. I've done the workbook. I've listened to the parenting one, and I've read the marriage one.
Yeah.
And it is a brilliant, beautiful way to love others.
And
And
so simple. Yeah.
but so deeply personal to my
Right.
soul of that a boundary is not a wall, a boundary is a gate.
Right.
A boundary is a gate that I open and I close. But what we've been taught is a boundary is a wall. And we build
Yes.
it thicker and thicker and thicker. And a lot of parents have really bad boundaries with their children. And a lot of children don't know how to put boundaries with their parents. So I think they cut them off. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the kids tried to put up boundaries with some of the parents and the parents just kept leaping over them. And I don't mean the ones you're
Mm.
talking about, I mean just in general. So we have to I think everybody should have that book. And I haven't read it for a while, but I constantly hear people and challenge people when they use boundaries in the wrong way. Well, I'm just setting up boundaries, and
Yeah.
that's not a boundary. And a boundary is there because we do need safety in our lives, right? We need safety sometimes from our parents' opinions.
Yes.
We do, especially when we're in our 20s, especially when we first get married, and we want peace. But I think what we've decided is safety means not having them in my life, which is not true at all.
Right.
Peace
Right.
requires me, and that's not true at all, especially for Christians. But I think like getting honoring and boundaries down correctly and like deepening them. What does it mean to honor your parents scripturally? What do boundaries look like? How do we love people that aren't that likable or are irritating? Because you can really love your parents and find them to be excruciatingly irritating, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's
So,
interesting because as a mom who has kids in their 30s, and I have kids that are 10, 11, and
right,
12, those
right,
kids in their 30s often offer me parenting advice, or they question why I'm parenting differently than I did with them.
right, yeah.
And and I like that. I like that conversation that I get to have with them because it's usually pretty funny. Not always. Sometimes it's hurtful because I've made mistakes. And as a parent, when your kid says something hurtful, you really have to like be honest that it was hurtful, but not put up a wall and say, well, then you just hurt me, so I'm not going to talk to you.
Well, and like you disrespected me and I need to be safe. So I'm never gonna have this topic again with you.
Yeah.
And I
I
think over
don't know disrespected. I have to look. I don't ever feel that.
well,
I
that's
don't
good.
think I feel that.
Not that you would know what you felt right away.
Yeah, I just have my feelings hurt. I don't feel disrespected because I think as a homeschool mom, we did all of our history and stuff using the Socratic method where questions are really good and helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and you just ask more questions to get to wherever you're going.
Right.
That I try to do that in relationships too. It's just ask questions. And some of it's funny where one kid will say, when I was little, this happened. Was like, I have no memory of that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I have no memory of
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah.
But the questioning, the first time I read that book, Boundaries, my kids were like maybe 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And I asked them each individually, the four of them, to tell me three things about myself that they didn't like that I did because I wanted to be a better mom.
Mm-hmm.
This was all separately, and they all said the same three things.
Wow.
And I remember crying and crying and crying. It's like, how did they even know? Like, I didn't have a cell phone back then, but I read romance novels incessantly, and they hated that because then I wasn't playing games with them or
Right.
anything. They
Right.
all said that. Um, I don't remember what the other two
Oh
were,
my gosh, that's
but
so interesting.
that was the only one I remembered. So I do ask my kids fairly regularly, what am I doing that you don't like? What could I do better as a parent?
Do you ever ask
Because,
them what did I do right? What am I doing right?
oh yeah, we
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mostly the girls, because we live near the
Right.
girls. I homeschool one of the grandkids. Ray's having a baby tomorrow, so
Well, and boys,
um,
boys,
yeah,
I
Ray is
think
like she's very clear on her boundaries with me and her children. Like, don't give them too much sugar. You cannot spank my kids. these different things that her and Jessica are very different. And
Right,
I
right.
like that they tell me what they like and don't like,
Yeah,
because I want them to enjoy me as a grandparent for their kids.
right, right. And that should, yeah, and I think that's like our kids should be telling us what they do and don't like. They shouldn't
Yeah.
make us guess,
No.
and we shouldn't make them guess.
Or guess what they're thinking, or
No,
have,
well,
or
we're
needing to know everything they're thinking. Like,
right.
that's, you don't get to know everything your kid is thinking. They have
Well,
their own private thoughts and world.
well, they don't. We don't even. We're not even very good at knowing what we're thinking either. So to try to guess what someone's thinking, it just if they're to just
Yeah.
ask and believe it and walk with it, and yeah,
So so I think the avoiding this happening as to the best of your ability, because you never know what your kid's going to decide. Um, it reminds me when Jim went to prison when he was 17.
Jim is our brother.
Yeah, our brother Jim. And he's feeling sorry for himself. His parents are horrible. He never got all the stuff he wanted. So he's in prison, and the guy's like, "What do you mean you had a little motorcycle? What do you mean you got to ride horses? What do you mean you guys had canoes and kayaks and used to go racing all around Southern
Yeah,
California? What do you mean you got to shoot guns?" And um, it gave him such a different perspective because he's in prison with people who didn't have anything, whose
right,
parents
right.
were horrible, really truly horrible people.
Yeah,
And it's that what I don't understand is that trauma that upper middle class kids figure out for themselves. They find their trauma and just hold on to that and blame their parents, that I don't understand. And I think that's
yeah.
really the root to this no contact thing.
Well, it could be that also you have a bunch of parents that are giving their life over to their kids, which is not correct. We're supposed to do all things that we do as unto the Lord, and most of it we do it as parenting as unto our kids. And we expect and want something back from them often
Right.
that we shouldn't want back from them. We should let them choose what they want to give back to us and not be, and deal with our own disappointment. I think that many parents are way over involved in their kids' lives all the time, and they think that I was so involved, that was amazing, but they might have had a kid that needed to scrape their knee and get a black eye from being
Yep.
punched, and things like that. I think that's a huge problem in society, and the more financial freedom you have, the more ability you have to protect and insulate your children. And I think also what you do is you give a really good role model of, hey, kids, you always can blame me as your mom if I didn't, or your dad, if I didn't get you that. If you wanted to do this and I got it for you, you expected it. But if I couldn't get it for you, then you're disappointed. And I think that as a child, maybe they get older, they don't have anybody else to blame, even if they've had some success. So why don't I feel good? I'll blame my parents. Why don't I feel good when I go back to my parents? I'll blame them. I won't blame myself and how I'm thinking and how I'm spoiled and how I'm selfish and how I'm prideful. I will become. So I think that's just. I mean, I don't think you'd have to ask a couple. You'd have to figure out a couple kids you could talk to that would be honest with you. A couple adult children who have done that. I don't really know. I don't get it.
Well, I have, because they're friends of my kids. And so sometimes it just real randomly come up. Um, Many of them, their parents have cut them off because their parents got remarried,
Yeah, yeah.
and they don't want anything to do with the kids from the other marriage. And this is like kids in their late teens whose parents get remarried and never see them again, which is so bizarre to me. But
Well,
yeah,
statistically, it's the man that just kind of accidentally doesn't see his kids anymore. That's typically what it is. The man is willing to go to another family and leave his kids alone with
yeah,
his wife. And I don't get it. That would just crush me. But
yeah. So that, that's not anybody's fault. But and that person's like, you can't fix that because that parents cut you off. But I totally forgot where I was going with that. Okay, so then there's the family that I've spoken to, like the parent is a problem and really difficult to be around, like sometimes scary because
Hmm.
of mental health issues. And I just really love how this one particular young woman has worked that out in her
Right,
life.
right,
That I can honor my mom, I don't respect her choices, but I don't want her to feel like she's out there alone, but I don't
right.
want to be around her very much. To the other side of, I just feel like it is really, you're so spoiled that your parent missed one thing and you're never going to talk to them again.
Yeah. Of course, again, I don't think it's ever just one thing. I think it's a culmination of their thoughts that they've been having for years, and they
Yeah,
finally have an answer. And the answer is, I keep going back. The answer is, it's my parents' fault.
yeah.
It's my
And so
parents'
the
fault.
victim and victimizer thing was
Right.
why in our culture do people want to identify so strongly with being the victim? Because I feel like that's one of the roots of this issue.
Yeah, so we talked about this the other day is like that I think that in our culture we have this victim and we've separated people just into two groups. I'm a victim and I'm the perpetrator of trauma on other people. We see that when it comes to racism, we see that when it comes to wealth. I'm a victim of the billionaire, okay? I'm the victim of blank, I'm the victim of men, that men are super dangerous to go out with. I'm a victim. I'm going if I haven't been, I'm going to be. And every man out there is a potential person to victimize me, to be a Viking, the victim in the Viking mentality. I think I've heard it called, and I
Yeah.
think that like we're seeing that in well, just this last week I've been thinking about we're seeing that in the church where every pastor is it induces trauma upon people, and every parishioner can be a victim. And I
Yeah.
don't get, and everybody who ever has worked at church is a victim, and so it's separating, and it's in really simplistic, wrong terminology, but it's super easy to categorize that way because all you need
Okay.
is your feeling. So I think
Yeah.
what's happened, we're seeing that probably in parenting. We're seeing kids identify as victims. And I've heard parents identify as victims. Well, my kids don't come see me enough. And you find out they see them every week. But in that
Yes.
parent's mind, they're a victim too. I
Not
don't have
enough.
control over them.
Yes.
So I think that we easily do that. And as parents and as children, that dynamic is really awful. So,
One of the things we've done for years, about 30 years, Michael and I have done, is we already always had a whiteboard
right,
where when we're struggling with something, we can put the actual facts up on the board,
right.
put them in groups and categories, erase, kind of move it around the board as we think about it. And a lot of this, if you made a list of the pros and cons of your parent, um, I think you'd be surprised at how much better they are than you thought.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to like the story, the narrative that's in our head. The facts don't matter. The
Yeah.
facts don't matter. It doesn't matter that 95 to 98 times out of 100 my parents were right by me. It's the 2% that matters, and we magnify it. And then what you started with, some counseling can magnify that, and the group we're in can magnify that. So
Yes.
that if we don't have people telling us, man, that's wrong, that's not a good way to think, that's not healthy for you to think that way. Yes, your parent might have some of these issues, but that's not good for you to think that way. And
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult because once you're in an
Okay.
echo chamber, all you keep hearing, you
Yeah.
don't just keep hearing your own self. You keep hearing repeated back to you louder and louder and louder.
And through other people's stories, and then you connect, yeah, my kid did that too.
That's right.
My kid did that too.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And it
Well, and
compounds.
Jesus comes to rewrite our story, right? So even if we did have this thing with our parents, There's a different way. We can just choose a different way to look at it. We can choose that. My past, I had a lot of lack in my past, but you know what? That lack gave me a huge sense of gratitude, or, I think that's just super important.
Okay, so to resolve this, what questions could somebody ask themselves, whether they were a parent or a child in this situation? What could they start actually thinking about that might give them some insight? I feel like
I don't
most
know.
people
That's,
think they already know. I know what's going on here. I know, what's at fault. I already know all of this. I heard from other people that I'm agreeing with. And so we stop being curious about outside of that, what else might happen.
yeah, I don't know. But one thing I do know is we don't know all the things that happened. We're putting best guesses together, even in our own relationships, and we're almost always pretty far off the mark. I think one thing we completely leave out is we have this conversation in our own head about why our kids or our parents shouldn't have done anything, and we rarely invite Jesus into it, into the conversation. I don't mean just scriptures, but we don't just sit down with God. Well, how can I honor my parents? God, how can I honor my son? How can I honor my daughter, my adult children? What do they need from me now at this season? Um, so I don't really know. That's a good question. I'll think about that and I'll come back on and try to answer that. I
Okay,
do
the other thing,
I do think that parents. You had written this down in the note. I do think parents are completely unaware of how exasperating they are to their children. I think parents are completely unaware that they're using the exact same behaviors over and over and over again, never aware that they're draining their kids. I
that is
mean,
so interesting because we were in a home church with a bunch of really young people, and a lot of their conversations with each other were about their parents being financially irresponsible, health irresponsible, like they're anticipating their parent being a problem for them in 10 or 20 years.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, that is so interesting. So that gives me an opportunity to have a conversation with my kids. It's like, what can I do now to, make this easier for you later?
Well, I think that we're not like very good. I think we keep like we there's something that goes on that we have our kids and we do a ton. We at the beginning we do everything for them. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think there might be some entitlement to parents that now they owe me something. At least they owe me the right to say whatever I want. And I don't think we're aware of like when we're talking about something over and over and over again, and our child doesn't have the ability to go, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I don't
It's,
quit bringing it up. But
yeah.
parents, I think that's where that exasperation comes from. And it's like that stirring up, that word is stirring up wrath. We put a little, we just stir it up, and I see it. So kids are going, they're like, it's not that much fun being here. It's not that enjoyable. We know it's going to go to this level of thing. It's always going to end up with Trump is an idiot or Biden's an idiot or vaccination or religion, or it's never going to be just sitting and talking. And parents have a really hard time asking their kids any questions where they already don't have the answer their kid should have, and the parent sets up their kid and pounces on them, and or the
Yeah,
parent is
it's hard
shocked.
to do because if you feel strongly about your topic, going back to my mom and her food issues, that it's hard for some you to give that up. And I have things like that I know because I love homeschooling. And I also know all my kids will not be homeschooling because
Right,
they get to make their own choices, which is what they're supposed to
which
do.
is a bummer.
But the like you owe me, I didn't really think about that very much. And when we adopted Luke, he was 10, and people would talked to him, and there was this implication about how grateful he should be to us
Right, right.
for adopting him. And it was just like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
look,
awful.
so you said, I started telling all my kids, like, you don't owe me anything.
That's
Literally,
right.
I decided to have you. We decided to adopt
Hmm.
you. We made all these decisions for
Yeah.
you. You don't owe me. I love you. I want you as a part of my life, but not out of a sense of you owe me something because of choices I made.
Right.
I
Right.
don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that going to the whole that your kids aren't going to all homeschool, you can know that and you can be okay with that. And then you can still let them know in little ways all the time how bad their choices are. And I don't think
Yeah.
parents realize that there's so when you walk into a room, your face walks into the room, your soul, your emotions walk into the room, and your kid has been raised to like honor your emotions a lot of
Yeah.
times, and then that kid constantly feels you and they might blow up a year down the road, but I don't think we realize like, oh, our kids like are feeling our disappointment in them, our disagreement with them. And instead of having one clear conversation of, man, I would love if you homeschool. If there's any way I can help you homeschool, let me know. But man, I am super supportive of whatever you do with your kids. Instead, I don't think this scripture quite applies, but it does. We shuffle our feet and wink our eye, and we just like, we always are having all these little cues, and I think it's exhausting to our kids, honestly. My
Yeah, but
son early on Zeke would go, Dad, don't coach me.
oh yeah.
And so I learned, Victoria's 17 years later, I learned with
Yeah.
Victoria, I would say, I'm gonna take 10 minutes on this drive. I'm gonna coach her on this thing, okay? She'd be like, okay. But also as like a 12, 13-year old, she'd be like, not now, Dad, I want to concentrate on my volleyball game. I'd be like, okay. But it's
Yeah.
asking, and then at 13, it's gonna be different than at 30. But I tell you what, that like being like clear, like I want to talk about this. But thinking about it also, how can I enter into a conversation with an adult? How can I honor my children the same way I would honor anybody else? How if I
Yeah,
was
I
going to go,
remember Michael's first real adult conversation with our oldest. He came to ask his dad's opinion. And they got in a little bit of a fight. And Michael was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. You came and asked for my opinion. You have to ask yourself, do you want my
that's
opinion?
right,
And you have to know that you don't have to do what I say. That
right,
you're asking my opinion, but then you're going to have to make a decision
that's right,
and
yeah,
do what you think is best. So this can be, I'm not fighting with you. This is just,
that's right,
it's
yeah,
a discussion, and then you do with whatever you want with it.
yeah,
And it was just really interesting to go, this, you have to do, like when people ask for my help, because I'm an old mom with little kids, so I hang out with young moms who have kids my little kids' age. And they do ask me a lot of things. And I try to say up front, these are just ideas. You have to look at your own situation, your own family, your own spouse, your in-laws, whatever the case may be, your
right,
life.
right,
And you have to figure out if it works for you in that,
yeah,
because I got another 100 ideas. So try these three things, come back.
yeah,
We'll try three more things because there's no one right path. But on the me loving homeschooling, I really had to, as my some of my kids go to school, think about, well, what's special about that? So we send a little treat for like a Starbucks gift card or whatever
right, right.
for the
That's
first day of
good.
school. So you get a treat after school
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And just different things like that.
Yeah,
And I put their school calendar in my calendar so I know kind of
that's
where
right.
they're
Yeah,
at.
that's good.
And so when I get to talk to them, I
Yeah.
know where they're at. But
Well, hey, I think this is a good place to stop, and
okay.
we should talk about like questions that would help us think deeper about our kids, our adult children, and then the whole idea of don't exasperate your kids. I think that is at every age, but I think for our adult children it's even better. And I think that's one thing we do have more and more control over than we actually think. We're like, well, because I've heard this from parents. Well, you just don't want me to have an opinion. And it's like, well, you know what? I want you to like maybe love your kids more than you love your opinions. And so I think going over some of that, those two things would be pretty important to go over on a second part. And then you had another question here about rejecting, canceling your parents, and then will your kids be more likely to cancel you? So I think those are three good questions or three good parts for next week.
Okay.
And then if you have any questions, you can just put them to us. You can put them on Facebook, message us, one of us, and or you can email me at les at thejourney.tv. And I am the good email reader of the two of us. So ask us any questions.
Okay.